The church is as necessary as breathing.
For somebody to know who you are, what your name is, to welcome you, and to know that this is your second home.
Our parents gave to us a great gift, and the great gift was a faith and a confidence to carry forward the faith. And the concept is that the best way to do that is to have a community that can do that for many others.
World War II was over, and all the soldiers and sailors were coming back, and many of them came to the South Hills. And the Greek population grew. In order to go to church, they had to go all the way to Oakland or to the north side. And also their children didn't have a Greek school.
There were meetings at Mr. and Mrs. Cronus's house on the corner of Pioneer Avenue and Belair. The reason for those meetings is because we were having trouble getting over to St. Nicholas to Greek school.
George Cronus decided that his sons needed to have some understanding of Greek, and so he hired a Greek school teacher. Pretty soon, the number of kids coming to the classes expanded. They eventually got a class in the local school that they got for about 11 Greek children.
And we would get together with all these families in Brookline. And one of the conversations around 1950 came up that, wouldn't it be nice if we had a church in South Hills?
We used to drive either to Holy Trinity or to St. Nicholas, but we did not go often.
The only time we got to go to church primarily was holidays.
At that time, we used to take 2 streetcars to get to either Northside or the Oakland Church.
Not that I ever lost my religion, but it was like putting it on the back burner.
A lot of the families in the South Hills areas were actually going to other church denominations because they didn't want to take those trips all the way to Northside or Oakland.
That's when the Cronus family rounded up a few of the people, and we decided, let's have a general meeting of as many of the Greeks as possible.
Mrs. Cronus was the spirit leader of the movement.
Today, she's still remembered fondly by those early founders.
They started looking for Greek-sounding names, and they went out in the community and they started approaching these people.
And my sister Argie sent out notices to wherever they thought there was a Greek family in the South Hills for us to meet.
It was George Aspiotis, my father, and Mr. Savas, and they would go out and they would approach these families. And pretty soon they came up with about 90 families.
And they rented the American Legion Hall on Brookline Boulevard. There we had a big crowd. And at that meeting, we selected a temporary committee to investigate the possibilities of a church and start gathering money. Our women, they would go down to South Side at 6 o'clock in the morning, and at the J&L Steel Company entry there would sell raffle tickets. And then we started to hold dances.
We bought a piece of property in Parquet Street in Brookline where we would have our first liturgies. We would bring different priests from different locations to come and hold those liturgies.
And it just caught on real good. People who started hearing about it started wanting to join in.
Believe it or not, we thought that we could build a church in Brookline.
In 1953, we learned of the church on Academy Avenue was up for sale.
The Lutherans in Mount Lebanon were building another church further down on Washington Road.
Certain people approached them, and I was present with 3 or 4 meetings, and they had an offer of $120,000 from somebody else, but they were willing to sell it to a church group for $108,500, providing they could stay in there for 1 year while their church was being built. And we were $35,000 short. So when we had the meeting down in the PNC in Dormont, there was half a dozen people there, which M.G. Masitis was there, and he agreed to loan us $28,000. And the other $7,000, 6 or 7 people signed a demand note. It had to be renewed every 90 days. I was so very proud of that first council. We had 12, 13, 14 men. Every 2 weeks we had a meeting, and sometimes every week. When we couldn't pay the bills, Everybody would pitch in $10, $20, $30 every meeting to pay the bills. We start the church. We have no income, we have no money. We have 3 mortgages, PNC, the demand note, and MG Messitis. We have a $500 income per month, and we have the priest to pay. We had a General Assembly downstairs from our church on Academy Avenue. And we told them about our financial difficulties. During the discussion, Frances Harris stood up at the meeting and she says, "I'll pledge $10 a month for 1 year." And other people stood up and did the same thing. "So will I, so will I, so will I." And that is how our pledge system got started. Frances Harris stood up.
We started to convert the Lutheran Church by tearing down walls and building platforms.
And from then on, Holy Cross actually became like an extended family. They were so involved in each other's lives.
I remember the community as a very vibrant place, a lot of excitement.
It seemed very natural. The church became part of our greater family. We looked at the church as our family, no difference.
The priest was new and he was part of the family too. It was just like one great big family.
We needed a church where we lived. And I think if you have a church where the people are, the involvement will be greater. And I think when people are involved, they tend to get, their social circle expands, and they tend to get more and more involved, and the families get involved.
And when it's an integral part of your life, you grow with it. You learn from it.
It wasn't long, though, that church was being outgrown.
We got to the point where we're so overcrowded in Academy Avenue, and we didn't have proper facilities for all the things the Philoptochos wanted to do, the Greek school wanted to do.
Once we bought Academy Avenue, we saw the preponderance of people coming in.
The congregation was growing every year. From the original 77 families in '54, more and more people were coming into the area. It was a high growth area.
Academy Avenue was always intended to be a temporary church. It wasn't Orthodox in style. It was small and our community was growing. We wanted some room to develop in.
We were looking around for land where we could build a church that was truly a Greek Orthodox church. We had a choice of 2 pieces of property. One was where the gallery is now, and the other was the hillside where we are at the present time.
And I was at the meeting where it was decided that we had to go forward and build a church, buy the property and get started on fundraising to build a church.
There were a lot of people that were very concerned because they didn't think we had the economic basis to go ahead with the project.
People said, "Why are you building a church way out there? In the middle of nowhere," was the terminology. Because at that time, a lot of the community lived in Brookline, Dormont, and Mount Lebanon. And we were sort of on the outer fringe of Mount Lebanon.
I remember Dino Christakis in particular standing in the back of the room, and he said, "Listen, folks, I don't know why you're afraid of going ahead with this. As Greek Orthodox churches do not fail. And if you have true faith, we will succeed."
And I think it was one vote that there was a decision to buy the property on the hillside rather than where the lower level that was flat.
At that time, Bill Conomus was very instrumental in our making the decision in buying on a hill.
Bill Conomus, when people were pledging, he gave what at that time was a sum probably 10 times what anybody else gave. And the importance of that can never be underestimated because that was a real key.
We couldn't afford a contractor to build a church, and actually Bill's office even put a bond on his house to build the church.
People really, really gave. If you look at today's numbers, considering with the time that this was in the 60s, the amounts of money they gave were enormous. And we managed. We built the church.
That was that great love. That we're doing something together for the greater good of the people and, of course, to glorify God. The things that you like best about yourself are probably because of relationships and things you learned in the church.
I think the church has really grown because it's been open and it welcomes all the people, regardless of what their background, whether they're Greek or ethnic or whatever. and gives them an opportunity to really learn about the church and to participate.
In the wedding vows, I think we say something like, what was it? God put together, let no man put asunder, or something like that. You guys take good care of this church.